Good evening. I want to welcome everyone to our board meeting for the Arlington Public Schools, regular board meeting for May 9th. It is 6 p.m., so we'll get this meeting started. First off, we're going to have our land acknowledgement by Dr. Sweeting.
Good evening. We honor the first peoples of these lands by acknowledging that the area in which we gather is within the traditional territory of the Stillaguamish tribe of Indians. The Stillaguamish people have inhabited these lands and waters since time immemorial, and their ancestors have remained in this territory to this day. The Stillaguamish people have continued to practice the traditional ways of their ancestors of fishing, hunting, and gathering. The Stillaguamish tribe has had these lands and cultural traditions passed on to them by their ancestors who believe that everything has a spirit and that they are caretakers of these lands and waters.
Thank you, Dr. Sweeting. Next, we will have our Pledge of Allegiance. Will everyone please rise? Thank you. Next, we'll have the roll call. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Director Ray,
Here.
Director Kelly,
Here.
Director Kingman,
Here.
President Levesque,
Here.
Director Knapp,
Here.
Student Advisor Andrich, Student Advisor Schroeder,
Here.
Superintendent Sweeting.
Here.
Thank you. Maddie will be tardy, but she will be here. Next on our agenda is our approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion, we approve the agenda.
One second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Madam Clerk, can we have a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. The agenda is now adopted. Next on our agenda is our approval of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes, our regular meeting minutes from April 25th and our special board meeting minutes from the Community Voices on April 28th. We're going to do them one at a time. Can I get a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from April 25th?
Make a motion, we approve the regular meeting minutes from April 25th, 2022.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the regular meeting minutes from April 25th. Madam Clerk, can we please take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. Those minutes are now approved. Next up is our special board meeting minutes from the Spring Community Voices event from April 28th. Can we get a motion to approve the special board meeting minutes from this Community Voices event from April 28th?
I move we approve the special board meeting minutes of April 28th, 2022.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Community Voices minutes from April 28th. Madam Clerk, can we please take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. Those minutes are now adopted also. Next up is our community members' public comments. Do we have anyone signed up to speak this evening?
We do not have anyone signed up this evening.
Thank you. We do encourage people to communicate with the board if they would like. I bet there's more people at the baseball in the across the parking lot, so that's great. Next up is our consent agenda, which includes our personnel report, our payroll report, warrants, out-of-state overnight to Skills USA National Leadership Conference, overnight field trip for the golf to Spokane, Resolution 2204 delegating authority to Washington Interscholastic Activities Association, WIAA, a cooperative agreement with Grand Canyon University, cooperative agreement with Western Governors University, interlocal agreement with Marysville School District for the Regional Apprenticeship Pathways Center. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I can move we approve the consent agenda.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, can we please take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. Our consent agenda is now adopted. Madam Superintendent,
Yes, President Levesque.
I think there was something really interesting in our personnel report. Would you care to comment on that?
Yes, I will. So in our personnel report in the consent agenda, we approved Brenda Booth, a current principal at Pioneer, into a new position, which is the Director of Literacy and Learning Support for next year, beginning July 1. The purpose of that change is based on a needs assessment to have support for special education and also literacy, especially for our K-3 students. And so it's going to be really important that Brenda will work with both Carrie Henderson-Burke and Dave McKellar. And the intent there is to come alongside classroom teachers and support them in literacy and in special education. And the person that was also approved that is moving into the principalship is Sarah Durant. She's the current assistant principal at Pioneer.
Thank you for explaining that awesome new addition. We're so excited to have these supports in place for our students. Next up is our first item of new business. It is our 2022 to 23 budget development briefing. And this will be presented by Gina Zutenhorst, our Executive Director of Financial Services. Welcome, Gina.
Good afternoon. I am going to work on sharing my screen, so please bear with me for just a moment. Should be pretty good at this by now, but it's always a little bit of a wonder. All right, so as you know, we are staring down the season of a new budget, development of our new budget. And so we really work to communicate with our board. Each of our board meetings, I come to you and provide you a briefing, provide you information, just give you the most up to date that I have, that I can compile for you, and share that with you as we get to the place where eventually we'll have a lot more detailed information. But right now, we're still in the early phases, and I will go over my presentation with you still, and I'll highlight those things that are new. And otherwise, you can kind of consider this somewhat of a refresher. The budget is very complicated, and so it's a good time to really tune in and commit some of it to memory for yourselves as well, of your understanding of how the budget comes together and what are those big pieces that we're waiting for in the process. So first of all, we talk about vision aligned budgeting and how our budget aligns with our primary mission, which is to educate, prepare, and inspire students to graduate and seek their full potential as lifelong learners. And strategic plan goal 3, resource stewardship, is the one that is most closely attuned to what we're doing with financial resources, just aligning people, time, money, and property with equitable learning and achievement for students, making decisions using an equity lens and data. But I always like to say that that goal in particular is really about supporting all the other major goals of our strategic plan. However, within it, we still have the 3 goal areas, and you can see those there. And a point of pride, we have values that guide budget decisions. So in Arlington, our board has been very specific about when approaching budget and budget decisions and talking about budget, we want to make sure that we are aligning with our strategic plan and the goals within that. But then what are the values that we use when we're looking at our budget and making decisions for our budget? And so there is a list there, bulleted items, quite a few things. It's detailed. And we've looked at this each meeting. We'll continue to look at this, but I do want to still highlight that one of those items when it's talking about our financial operations, it says maintain compliance with board policy for minimum fund balance, while also allowing for times of emergency, flexibility in times of emergency. So just as a reminder, we are still on the tail end of a situation that was quite an emergency for all of us, the pandemic. And so next year's budget, we will likely be dipping into that minimum reserve, but not on a permanent basis. So moving ahead, we've looked at this budget timeline. We are still in the March through July budget briefings. April 25, May 9 would have been a time to bring you a board resolution if we were going to be doing a reduction in force. And that is not the plan at this time. So our next major deadline within the budget development timeline is the July 10 budget draft that is required by law. And then the August 8 budget hearing would be more of a final, ready to propose for adoption. And by law, again, by law, the budget has to be adopted by our board by August 31st. So the planning that's underway for 22-23, we have the legislative session outcomes. That's always a big thing that we're waiting for, need to know before we really can move forward with any of our budget. So we know the legislature has set the cost of living rate increase or adjustment as a 5.5%. That's quite unprecedented. It is not an expected number that it would have been that figure. Nevertheless, we now know that that's what it is going to be used. Our prototypical school model allocation, the formulas have been enhanced slightly for nursing staff, counselors, and other social emotional safety and behavior supports, which is a move in the right direction. However, it is quite an incremental increase in that funding allocation. So it's not going to be of massive help to us at this time, but we are appreciative of that, and it's the step in the right direction. Staffing costs for 22-23. Our Human Resources Department is in the process of setting up all the individual salary contracts for any salary increases that we have for this coming school year and any of the unique factors around each of those positions. But we need that all to be all crunched in there before we can be bringing it over into the finance side and be able to do our heavy cost compilations and look at how that compares to our revenues and available resources. So our revenue estimates, we have our tool from OSPI that really helps us take a look at what our funding will be for the next school year. It is mostly for only the state funding pieces. It doesn't involve any of the other formulas. It doesn't include our federal funds. It doesn't include all our local and some miscellaneous other sources. So I have been working on that tool, and it looks like it'll be about 5 million more than we received in state funding only as compared to prior years. It does incorporate the 5.5% increase that the state would be putting into our funding allocation. And just a reminder, our regionalization is decreasing from 16 to 15%. And that is in regards to, it's just a part of the formula from the state. And they are stepping us down each year ever since McCleary. It's something that they apply to the average salaries that they fund for us. They give us the average salary plus 16%. Well, now it's the average salaries plus 15%, and that's kind of how they step it down. There is work at hand at the state level looking at rebasing some of how they have figured that out. And I can only hope that that is a move in the right direction as well, because that does not help us. The 15%
Pardon me, Gina.
to 15%. Yes, we have a speaker on the house, Mike.
Hey, can you remind everybody and understand that it might be changing, but since you're on topic there, the regionalization, is there a bottom end to that? Or can we anticipate in 15 years it being at zero, knowing what we know now?
as far as I understand it, I think that you have spoken that just right. In 15 years, it would be down to just the no percentage on top of the average. And
Understood.
supposedly everybody else is stepping down at 1% a year too. But
Great
there are
thing.
others that are receiving more than us to begin with. Some districts around us started as a 24% district. So they're stepping down as well, but only by 1% per year. So does that answer that? I think so.
It does. Thank you very much. I thought that was the case, but I didn't have it in front of me and thought you might be able to confirm. Thank
right.
you.
Thanks. Another big key part of our revenues is to remember that our ESSER funds will be depleted going into next year. And if there is a small teeny bit left, it is just because we didn't quite hit the target to fully exhaust it. But we will utilize those for purposes that are consistent with what they're being used for now to exhaust those next year, but it won't be worthy of a substantial help. So I want to just say that they're depleted. And our federal waivers around our school lunch programs, that is coming to an end. So we won't be able to be doing that district-wide any longer.
Gina, I have a question real quick.
Yes.
So do you know, I don't know, maybe off the top of your head, but maybe this is something you could provide, maybe next meeting
Sure.
when we have like full board. I'm curious about how much does it cost the district right now to provide lunches, and knowing that we will be acquiring that part of our budget next in September, what do we look at adding to a cost for on our end?
I will have to work with Brian and Ed on the details of food nutrition services budget. But in the past years ago, it has been mostly self-supporting. So whether it's federal, state, or families that pay for their meals, that all combined was pretty close to covering the operational costs, all the food, all the workers, all of that. Now, it doesn't necessarily also cover any indirect costs like utilities and things like that are part of running a program like that, but the direct costs of it, mostly it was in the years past close. So costs have been increasing, and I'm not so sure that the revenues have totally been keeping up. So I would expect that if I were to look at it now, just running the costs and the typical revenues, that we might actually be showing somewhat of a deficit that the district is providing those programs under. So other funding sources would have to be covering that. So I don't know what it would look like for this next year. But
Thanks, Gina. I just wanted to get an overview. I found out today that they said California has decided to cover that, which seems like an enormous bill for California to cover, and Washington is opting so far not to cover it. But it sounds to me like it hasn't been really, like you said, it's kind of a break even. So that's good to know. But
Yeah.
just a round figure would be like, I
Yeah.
just would like to know what that looked like for the fall for us. But as you
Right.
said, 2 years not paying for it, I'm sure there's something
Yeah.
that will be on our end.
I do think there's some discussion at the federal level around that, but it's so far out there for me that I don't have a good pulse on the timeline or the likelihood of what that would look like. I won't make a prediction, but in my head I had one there, but I'll just move to the next slide. So just awareness of the big picture. Our next year expenditures are going to be greater than we had planned. 5.5% at least greater than planned in salaries. Our revenues will also be greater than planned. This is good. Our legislature increased it with the 5.5% cost of living measure. It doesn't cover for everything and everyone, but it is an increase. Our prototypical school model increased, and our enrollment that we have budgeted for next year is greater than the enrollment in any of our old forecasts, which is a good thing. So the push point, though, is that our expenditures will exceed our revenues. We are spending at a greater rate than our revenues can sustain, which again is why I've been talking about our ending fund balance will be impacted. Now, we have been carrying at a higher level than our minimum, So that is going to, we are coming to that place where that is what is going to sustain us. So we will be moving to a time, not necessarily next year to have a huge impact, but we are moving to a time where we're going to have to stop and realign so that we're not spending more than we're taking in. So that's that awareness of the big picture, that cookie jar picture, reaching into the cookie jar and having, taking out. But that's my being humorous, right? So, and this is a positive thing rather than doing a formal reduction in staff, which would be detrimental. It's detrimental at any time, but especially at this time in the environment that we're in and what we're trying to accomplish with student learning and the well-being of everyone that is working. The timeline once more for the official budget document. This is a little bit of lingo, the F-195. That's an official document from OSPI. It's in a very prescripted format. And drafts of that, you'll be able to lay eyes on that for the July 11 board meeting. Now I'm bringing you pieces of it that before then. I'm bringing you parts and pieces that will go into making that. As we get closer, you'll have more of it. But July 11 is the first time that you'll actually be laying eyes on the very detailed document from the state that we use, that we actually submit. And then as required by law, we also post that on our district website and make that available to the public. And anybody who wants a copy of that, we would give and provide that. And then we will have our public hearing August 8th. And again, usually that's when the board adopts, but by law, it has to be adopted no later than August 31st. So that is that part. I'm going to switch over to a different document while you are thinking of any questions that you might have for me. See if I can find. I'm going to stop share for a second and then go back. See if I can find my document. Here we go. I wanted to share with you the figures that I have pulled together as our enrollment piece. So this is part of our 4-year forecast that will go into the budget itself, but also the 4-year forecast that we're required to do. And so we have used, the first column has the board adopted enrollment that we did in February. I'm sorry, I'm not aligning this very well. Too far. I utilized as source was prior year's data. We do kind of a weighted average to see what typically the increases are from grade band to grade band. And we also look at kind of just even a basic roll up from grade to grade. But we also had Flow Analytics that did some real good analysis and study for us. So I looked at their forecast of what they had for the next 4 years and utilized that in preparing these figures. So this is where we're at. And as you can see, there is still projected increase. So next year we would, or the 23-24 year out from next year, we would have an estimated of 5,576. And then the following year, increasing by 96 students. And then the following year, only increasing by 20, but certainly those will be adjusted and revised every year as the numbers come in firmer. So next time, hopefully I'll have more data to share with you. That's all I have for you today.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank
Do any
you.
board members have any questions? Or student advisor? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up on our agenda will be our academic and student well-being plan update 21-22. And that will be presented by Dr. Sweden.
Good evening again. My first slide is very interesting, and I selected this. I shared this in one of my updates recently. But it's important to see this tonight because when we think of what we've been going through the last 2 years and just trying to balance everything, and sometimes the rocks were big and then sometimes they were small, but they were challenging, but yet we have maintained. The next slide is, I thank everybody, but in particular, a group of people that this week is nurses, National Nurses Week. So I wanted to thank the nurses for helping us to keep the balance going throughout this whole thing. Not been easy, and it's taken all of us, but especially we needed the people that could help us through this and keep us healthy and moving forward. I shared with a few in the hallway is that I learned something new, that I learned that National Nurses Week begins each year around this time, so May 6th and ends around May 12th, because it's near Florence Nightingale's birthday. So I thought that was really cool to learn that. And then the nursing profession that they have is the American Nurses Association, and it's been around since 1896. And that organization, which, you know, is supportive to nurses, it also encourages all of us, you know, in our nation to honor those people and thank our nurses. And so my next slide is a thank you to the nurses. And so thank you. I brought this forward, this graph at I think the last meeting. This is a chart that the health departments and Snohomish Health Department shared with us. And it shows like different phases, the low, the medium and high. And it talks about, you know, the number of cases that would, you know, on the left side, like fewer than 200 and then over 200. And so we've moved. Last time I spoke, we were in the low, but we've moved into the medium. So and this chart, it talks about new cases. It also talks about indicators, which talk about the number of hospital beds that are being filled and such. So just an indicator. And I will share the next slide, which is the county health status, which is moved up a little bit. And I actually looked at it this weekend and it was higher. So I don't know, it notched back. It was just strange. I thought it was up in the 300s, but today I just took this off the site this afternoon, and it's 220. So just a little bit of a tick up. How that is reflected in our own district is this is as last Friday. So district-wide, you see 26. And then the next slide is by building. So you can see as of last Friday, we had over 5 at the high school. So if there's under 5 in one location, then we don't share the number, but if it's over 5, so you see the high school. I will say that over the weekend, I think we had a bit more activity. So we'll see what Friday shows on our chart. But we don't want this to be a mystery. You can see this at any time on our district website. There's a link on the front page. You can click right on it and see the information. I wanted to also share that tomorrow there's going to be, I'm looking at Mr. Sable because we're working on the annual surveys, and there's 3 of them. There's an annual survey that will go out to families and community members, and then one for all staff, and then one for our students in grades 6, 12. And there's 2 parts to the survey. The first part is the questions that we typically ask year after year. There's a few additions here and there, but part 2 is really focused this year on educational equity and student academic and well-being. So we're wanting to specifically ask some questions about in those areas to help us make better decisions. And so it's really important that we get as many people as we can, many students as we can to complete these surveys. So those will be coming out tomorrow. I wanted to share with the board that we are, and thank you to the great team out at the buildings and also the district office here, working hard in planning the summer school programs. And these are in the works. So there's plans, again, for credit retrieval and advancement opportunities. There's a literacy camp for the elementary. There's extended school year for the students with individual IEPs, individual education plans that need extended school year support. There's STEM camp for elementary English language learners. Oops, that should say 8th to 9th. Wow, 8th. That's a test. I even caught it. So 8th to 9th grade transition. Boy, oh boy, we don't want them to stay in the same, we want them to transition. But anyway, 8th to 9th grade transition, books and math on the bus, and summer recovery services, which relates to students with individual education plans and programs. And that's it. So what questions does the board have?
I have a question, Dr. Sweeting. Just in listening to something this afternoon, I was wondering, I think during COVID, we've distributed meals to families in the summertime. And I didn't know if that was something we were continuing or what that program looked like.
I believe I'm going to have to call a lifeline out to Mr. Lewis. He's going to come up and share. We are been working on that and identifying, I believe there'll be sites, but Mr. Lewis will help us with that.
Sure, thanks. Like Gina said, our ability to offer meals at no cost is going to be severely curtailed. And that curtailment begins in June, but we do have the summer feeding program that's still available to us. The areas in which we can serve are limited by poverty data in certain census tracts, and Presidents and Howler lie within those census tracts. So we're going to provide meals on Tuesdays and Thursdays to the community, both breakfast and lunch at President's Elementary. So we've got a number of programs occurring at President's Elementary there as well. So those students will also be able to obtain breakfast and lunch at that site during those times.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right, hearing no other questions. Next up on our agenda is our annual health room update, and this will be presented by our very own Krista Kramer, district nurse, who is walking really slowly up here. Happy Nurses Week, Krista. And there's some of your distinguished group along with you. Are they coming up to join you?
I hope they come up to join me. Wow. Oh, absolutely.
They're a little reluctant.
As they come up, I will pull up my presentation. There we go. Okay. There we go. Thanks for joining me. Okay, every year so far in my 4 years, I've presented each year just a little recap of the Arlington School District, what we do and what our numbers are looking like and how things are going in the health world. Oops. And so right away, this is a similar slide that I presented last year and what the role of the school nurse is. National Association of School Nurses says that the school nurse supports student success by providing health care through assessment, intervention, and follow-up for all children within the school setting. The school nurse addresses the physical, mental, emotional, and social health needs of students and supports their achievement in the learning process. I feel over the last 2 years. And with COVID in the health world of a pandemic, our roles are what they were. And our roles have changed as well with our ever-changing guidelines that this group knows so well, we've stayed on top of it. We have educated families, we've educated administration, we've educated staff on what is changing and what we are being asked to follow at the time. And these nurses do a wonderful job of it. They are still evaluating students. They are helping with contact tracing, even though we do have a hired person to do the contact tracing role. Absolutely, this group is still doing that. They are still a vital piece in the contact tracing, which we are continuing to do through the school year. They have implemented testing strategies in the schools that I feel was a really huge piece of the pandemic COVID world this year and such a change for us. And they did it with grace and open-mindedness, and they were great. They were great with all that, and they're continuing to test still today. I'm sure they tested today as numbers are going up. So to back up and not talk about COVID, we still have lots of students in our district with lots of health concerns and conditions. District-wide, over 3,000 students that we are monitoring out there with different disorders. 97 with anaphylactic disorders. We have 15 diabetic students, type 1 diabetic students in our school district, 33 with seizure disorders, 280 with asthma. And these all require care plans from medical providers and instructions on how to treat each individual student differently. And the nursing group knows their students. They know them, they know what's going on with them, and they are such a vital piece in an urgent emergent situation. We can talk our care rooms. So over the last year, we started documenting things differently so we could do better at grasping numbers. These numbers were taken last week, last Monday, last Tuesday, whatever the 3rd was. And we had documented over 2,000 symptomatic COVID students as of last week, 2,000 close contacts. We've since stopped really tracking the close contact piece because they're no longer required to quarantine. However, we did that, as you would know, for a long time based on the current guidelines and how long that they were going to be out on quarantine. And we have tracked over, 1,684, it's more today as of last week, positive cases in our district. When I looked at the number of students and the number of staff and the number of positives that we know of, we had a positivity rate in our district of about 28%. So 28% of us have actually tested positive. And my guess is it's probably quite a bit more than that, really, with people that don't test or never let us know either. So that's a lot of positive cases that somebody in our health room team has talked to and given instructions to and followed that process. The health room visits. So far this year, we've had over 28,000 health room visits. No, this school year. Yep. And then I looked at 2 care room visits. So we added a new code in Skyward and our nurses, if they're doing something specific to the care room, and we've had just shy of 5,000, hit our care rooms throughout the district as well. This year we got back into vision screening and hearing screening with lots of referrals, more than in the past, but probably because we skipped a year. A lot of our kids that would have been caught last year didn't get caught until this year. So we got everybody through there. Whoops. Oh. Vaccinations. District-wide, we have 72 students out of compliance. So that either means that they do not have all their recommended doses and required doses for school-age children, or they do not have a certificate of exemption on file. So we work on that. That is a battle we work on always. We're a little higher than we have been in the past, really not much higher. It still gives us over a 98% compliance rate district-wide, but we strive for better. I still strive for better on those percentages. So we're working on that. As I wanted to share this video with you as we're talking about Nurses Week, and this video isn't specific to the school nurse, but it is specific to nursing in general. So I wanted just to share with you some of the impact that nurses have every day.
During the Crimean War, more soldiers died from infection than in battle. Until a nurse introduced sanitary practices still in use today. When the scourge of polio hit the world, it was standard practice to strap down and immobilize patients. Until a nurse discovered that movement and physical therapy had far better results. In the 1950s, jaundice was a leading cause of infant death, until a nurse found that a few hours of sunlight could actually cure the condition. At the dawn of the AIDS epidemic, no one knew how the disease spread, so patients were kept quarantined and alone, until nurses defied convention and embraced them with compassion. During the Ebola outbreak, the disease was thought by many to be too contagious to treat, until a student nurse used what she had on hand, garbage bags and duct tape, to protect herself so she could care for others. And cerebral palsy robbed many patients of their ability to speak, until a nurse gave them back their voices. And I will always be grateful to her.
So okay. On. There we go. So in a school appreciation week, 3 of our nurses here out of the big group of nurses here is a representation of our school nurses that we have in all of our buildings and the number of students they serve next to them. And so I just wanted to thank, we are going to get together with this group later this week, but to thank this group for all the hard work that they do every day in our health rooms. Thank you. I definitely don't want to leave out our health room assistants that we have been so fortunate to get this year. So we have 237.5 hours of health room assistants. And I went around taking their pictures as well. They are a great group and they are such support to us, as well as our contact tracing team. We're really appreciative of all that. So thank you. Yeah. I should ask, do you guys have any questions for me?
I have a question for you.
Okay.
How does our numbers this year compare to last year's numbers and their pre-COVID numbers for the number of visits we've had? Because that was a really huge number, the
our numbers have
28,000.
actually been larger if we're talking health room visits. Now, not last year that we had limited students on campus. I don't count that year, but pre-COVID, our numbers are less, but our our student population, we don't have as many students there as well. So not quite as many. Skyward was also down for what I felt was about a month. So that was another piece that's gonna directly affect the numbers as well. We had no way to be documenting and grabbing about a month ago cases that came in. So there's more. There's always more from if you really think about how many times a nurse has actually, touched base with a family or a student in passing a quick on the phone and it doesn't get in there. There's thousands and thousands more probably.
Thank you. Thank you for all that you do to take good care of our kiddos. We appreciate you so much. Any other board members have any questions? All right, thank you for coming in and making us all cry. We appreciate that.
That was a great video. It was shared with me. I got to go in person this year to the school nursing conference for the first time now in years. And they shared it there and I was like, oh, so great. So thank you.
Thank you. Next up on our agenda is our first reading of Board Policy 4200, our safe and orderly learning environment. And this will be presented by our very distinguished Brian Lewis, Executive Director of Operations.
Good evening, directors. Tonight we bring to you policy 4200 for first reading. This is a current policy that covers parent, student, and community access to schools throughout the school day. The policy defines the availability of certificated staff to students and community members during the instructional day as the 30 minutes before and after the school day. It assures access to instructional spaces during class time for parents and guardians as long as their behavior is not disrupted. This language is new to the policy and is shown in red. This policy also lists examples of disruptive behavior on the part of a visitor that will result in them being asked to leave the school premises, and states that if a person refuses to leave after being asked to do so, directs staff to immediately request the assistance of a law enforcement officer. That's my review of the policy and the changes. There is another change in the title. It says parent access. If you could go back up to the top. Parent access and safe and order. It used to be safe and orderly learning environment. In this policy's classification was changed from recommended to essential with this iteration of it. Excuse me, discretionary.
So
to
Brian,
essential. Yes.
I'm sorry, Brian. So you said this would be throughout the day, parents can come in. I thought you said something about before and after, but I wasn't sure.
So to meet with the instructor, then the 30 minutes before and 30 minutes after is the time window, not during instructional time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
So
you very much.
this is the time where any board members can ask any questions.
Yes.
I would just make a comment that I do like the title change, parent access. I think that's more inclusive. And I think whenever we can make parents feel more welcome, we ought to do it. So I like that.
And that's exactly, the point of the title change is to reinforce the value of parent engagement.
Do any directors have any questions for Brian Lewis?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, that concludes the new business portion of our meeting. And now we're going to move to informational items. Next up, we'll have our superintendent's report.
Last weekend, I went to a superintendent conference and a women's leadership conference. And like Krista Kramer said, she had just gone to a conference for the first time for 2 years. So this was the first time that this happened in person for 2 years. And it was really just inspiring, the speakers that were there and spoke. And it was great to network. It was great to just be together and to talk about situations, but the speakers were fabulous and really enjoyed that. The next thing I wanted to share was that tomorrow we're conducting interviews to identify an individual to take Maddie's place when she graduates this year. So the student advisors serve for 2-year term, and we interview sophomores so that they come on board when they're a junior and then they're a senior. So Maddie's done that. And we're going to interview tomorrow for her replacement. And I know that Kyle's going to be on that interview team. Mary's going to be on the interview team, or Erica and Kyle are both. And I think Debbie is going to be on as well, and several other people. And so, and also the applications of students that will be, the students that will be interviewed. And here's Maddie. Hi, Maddie. That the students have also identified whether they want to apply for the student advisor position or position on our advisory council for education, or ACE committee. So we have several students, a good group of students that are going to be interviewed, and we're looking forward to meeting them and selecting the ones that are coming joining us. And so that's happening tomorrow. And my last thing for tonight is that we have about 6 weeks left of this school year, which seems almost incredible or impossible. But, and you know, the start of celebrations and graduations and all those things are, and all the planning and wrapping up are in the works. But my encouragement to everyone is just to finish strong, and we're going to keep moving forward.
Thank you, Dr. Sweeting. Next up, we'll have our legislative update and discussion.
I do not have any legislative update tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. We are moving right along. Next up is our comments from our board members. Kyle, would you like to share anything?
Absolutely. I would just like to start off with it's National Nurses Week, so I would like to say thank you to all of the oh, they're gone. Well, anyway, thank you anyways to all the nurses. My mother is a nurse. She used to be a nurse here actually, so I know just as much as anybody that they do a lot of hard work. They're not just sitting around playing cards. Also, I'll be part of the interviews. I think that was said already tomorrow. Looking forward to that. Be happy to meet the next advisor. And school's ending soon. 6 weeks sounds a lot shorter than I thought it was. About 6 weeks. 29 days of school. But that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kyle. Maddie, would you like to share anything? Is there something fun happening for you?
Well, other than me walking in and we're adjourning the meeting, I mean, that's pretty great. Yeah, I mean, this next couple weeks are going to be tough, but exciting. And I'm excited to start this new chapter. I should be getting my housing assignment soon for Wazoo, so that's exciting. And I found my roommates and all of that. I should be having my family who well, yes, some of them have never been here to Washington. I'm originally from Ohio, for those who don't know, and I moved here about 7 to 8 years ago. And so my grandparents on my mom's side are going to be coming, and my godmother and her husband as well for my graduation. And so that's pretty exciting. That's going to be happening soon. And it's all becoming really real, but I'm really, really ready. I am extremely ready. So yeah. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you, Maddie. Director Ray, do you have any comments for the board?
I just like the fact that we're back to normal adjournment times pre 7 p.m.
Thanks for not dragging that out too long. We appreciate it. Director Kingman.
Toward that end, I have nothing. Thank you.
Director Knapp.
Yeah, I also would like to thank the nurses. I've had very many good experiences with nurses throughout my life, and my mom was a nurse when I was little too. So always kind of had a special place in my heart. And I just wanted to comment about community voices. That was really awesome to connect with the community, and looking forward to the interviews tomorrow. So anyway, yeah.
Thank you. Director Kelly.
Yes, I hope to finish strong. Finishing is the goal. That's the goal. Yeah, so nothing to add. Again, also appreciate the staff we have here, appreciate the nursing. And as a teacher myself, I try to understand their role, and I can have some sense of the chaos that they're given on a daily basis. So when I have kiddos who insist on seeing the nurse, I really have to run through the agenda of, does it meet these criteria? And no, it doesn't. So I think we can, I think part of it is that visitation. They really like that little moment with the nurse, which I get, but I have to kind of balance that out a little bit. So it's kind of a fun job. So I try to spare the nurses extra, right? Just keep the real serious cases. But anyway, just all is going well, and I'm looking forward to moving through May with our meetings. And I've attended the community voices, and they're great. I really appreciate that opportunity to talk with people one-on-one, so to speak.
Thank you, Director Kelly. One more thing, Maddie.
Yes, I just want to say good luck to all the candidates tomorrow. I was in that position, and trust me, I was sweating, and oh my Lord, I was nervous, but just treat it as a conversation. I don't know if they're listening now, but be yourself and good luck.
Thank you, Maddie. I just want to wrap up our comments from the board members by saying Mr. Royce is number one. No, I don't remember what the email said, just that Mr. Royce is number one. Number one
Athletic director
director
in
of
District
something.
1. Yep.
So I'm sure Gary's all over that with like the biggest press release ever, for a forthcoming press release ever. But it's pretty exciting, and we appreciate all that he does for us. And I want to echo, I work at a hospital, so I get to hang out with nurses a lot, and I think they're pretty amazing. And I know your mom, and I just want to say thank you to our school nurses who take care of my kids and everybody else's kids, and have done so much to help our community and our staff and support the learning process now more than ever. So I want to say thank you to that. And I want to remind everybody that our next board meetings, we have 2 special study sessions next week on May 16th and 17th at 6 p.m. And those will be in the Lincoln Room here at the district office. And then we have a regular board meeting on May 23rd at 6 p.m. right here in the boardroom. And if there's no other comments or business, then I could entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn this meeting. Madam Clerk, can we please take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
All right, this meeting is adjourned. Have a great night. Drive safe.